We're good. We're good. You best start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner. You're in one. That's right. Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Jacob Wile.
And we are here to talk about the 20th anniversary of a film and a franchise that, frankly, I really don't think gets the proper respect it deserves, especially because the last couple movies in this franchise didn't do so hot. But, folks, we are talking about Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, a film which released 20 years ago to this day, which makes me feel so old to say. I almost have a shiver running down my spine saying that. Like, we're getting into territory with these 20-year anniversaries where it's like, I vividly remember everything going on in my life when this thing came out. That is not good. Oh, God.
I was there, too.
Okay. Yeah, Lucas Green is in the comments. Yeah, it really doesn't feel... I don't know, Lucas Green. That's an interesting question because on some level, it really does feel like just yesterday. Because like I said, I still have a shit ton of memory about this time in my life. But at the same time, as we're going to kind of break down, and one of the reasons why I think that the original trilogy of Pirates movies is so underrated is I really feel like, and I kind of put this in the video description, I really feel like these movies were like doing the cinematic universe before the cinematic universe existed. And I don't mean that they were trying to be like, oh, John Lafitte is going to be in the Pirates movie and then he's going to be the sea captain in the Haunted Mansion movie. That would be awesome. Please do that, Disney. I'm kidding. But what I mean by cinematic universe is I mean like with this movie and especially Dead Man's Chest, which in a couple years we will talk about the 20th anniversary of that. I really feel like they were building a lore with these movies. They were really like, these movies were just so rich with world building, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Code Geese says I didn't see this film until 2008. I really liked it though.
Sorry, not dinner, but it's
pronounced. No, you're fine.
It's Gios.
Oh no, you're right. You're right. Dragon did correct me on that. It's just kind of force habit. Anyways,
yeah.
Jacob, what is just overall? You want to give me your kind of thesis and also your nostalgia for Curse of the Black Pearl?
Well, the funny thing is, unlike you, I didn't actually see this movie in theaters. I only saw it when, like, my siblings, my sister and her boyfriend at the time, had it on DVD.
Mm-hmm.
It's like so I didn't actually watch it until they actually brought it home. But obviously, I was vaguely familiar with the ride. I mean, the thing is, I'd only been to the parks like once or twice as a kid, and that was a long time before this movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the thing is, I don't remember if it was before or after the movie came out, but I remember when my sister and I went to Disney World with like our grandma and family friends, we actually went on the Pirates ride several times because she loved it so much.
Yeah.
And I know you have a story with your sister too, but that's the kind of like interesting, funny story with my sister. It's like the fact that I can't remember if it was because of the movie or because she just loved the ride, but we went on it like 3 or so times because she loved it.
Mm-hmm.
So
was the Jack Sparrow stuff in the ride at that point? Because it took them a few years to put that in.
I think it was before the overlays and everything.
Okay. So that was like the classic version. That was like the Coca-Cola classic version of Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, and keep in mind, it was the one in Florida, not the one in Disneyland.
Right. So it was like the Coke Zero version of Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist.
I know. That's fine. Obviously, there are differences, and I've been on both.
Hey, the Florida one does have a better queue. I'll give you guys that much.
That is definitely true. It again fits in better with the New Orleans square of it all.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I've always felt like the one at Disneyland is weirdly like it's in this weird kind of like intersection between Frontierland, New Orleans Square, and Adventureland. Like it's like, and it could thematically kind of fit into all three of them almost. Not so much Frontierland, but then they decided to put pirates on Tom Sawyer Island. Anyways,
But yeah, the thing is, like I said, the very well could have been even before the movie came out. For all I know, this movie came out in 2003. 2003, I was only 9 at it, only 8 at that time. So it's like, so for all I know, this could very well be the first PG-13 movie I ever even saw, even on DVD. For all I know, so it's like so it was like so seeing a movie like this was kind of surreal, even at that point. Like, do you want a background or just my overall nostalgia?
Oh no, I was going to do background, just overall nostalgia.
All right. So personally, for the movie, it's like enough of the ride. I'll get to the movie part. It's like, as I said, I watched the movie and I enjoyed it, but it's not one I didn't fully appreciate until I got older and until like I saw like Dead Man's Chest and went back to watch this. I was like, wow, this movie is actually better than I thought. It's actually one of the few movies I'm aware of that actually just starts with the title and doesn't even get like opening logos or anything.
Yeah, there's no Bruckheimer logo, contrary to popular belief. I feel like that's kind of a Mandela effect for some people.
Yeah, there's no Disney logo. There's no Bruckheimer cat, the Bruckheimer tree. It's like there's nothing. Just straight to the title: Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl. I mean, I don't know if that's an oversight or a stylistic choice.
I think it was a stylistic choice.
I mean, it most likely was.
I mean, even the Lord of the Rings movies opened with the New Lines logo.
Yeah, so it's like, so the thing is, it kind of sets a mood for the movie. Like, this is not your average like Disney film. Like,
this is also the very first PG-13 rated movie to be released by Walt Disney Studios proper.
Yeah, not through Touchstone or Hollywood Pictures or anything like that.
Yeah.
Not that anybody remembers Hollywood Pictures anyway.
I remember Hollywood Pictures.
Yeah, I know, but it's not...
Literally the only thing I can recall that was released by Hollywood Pictures was the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Except, to be fair, it's not one that many people remembered.
And if it weren't for that one movie, I probably would not remember it.
Yeah. And Touchstone, more people remember probably because of
almost exclusively Nightmare Before Christmas and Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Basically, yeah. and Touchstone can't even claim Nightmare.
Maybe a splash.
It's like, and really, Touchstone can't even claim Nightmare anymore.
That's true.
Funny enough, I think my first exposure to that was through Kingdom Hearts.
Nightmare Before Christmas, I could see that. I could see that being a first exposure to that movie for a lot of people.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think this is where I had seen this movie before that, but I think I, got into it more when it was featured in Kingdom Hearts.
That makes sense.
With Kingdom Hearts 2, it's like it's like the one live action world in the game.
right.
And to this day, besides
well, kind of like how Nightmare Before Christmas was like the one stop motion world in the game.
Well, technically, I guess you could count Tron, but
well, I'm saying in the original KH1.
Yeah, but I'm saying in Kingdom Hearts 2, I guess technically Tron counts, but also
Tron. Well, yeah, technically it does. I don't know. It's different beasts because obviously Tron is like very animated in its own right.
Yeah, so it's like. Pirates was like, I remember that was like Pirates was like a huge deal. Like it was like, so basically Kingdom Hearts 2 probably like refueled my interest in this, and then rewatching, I'm like, ooh, this movie's actually pretty great. And of course, here we are 20 years later talking about it.
All right, run down the comments here, folks. You guys are like firing it off in the comments. I'm really glad to see that because honestly, this is like, based on the reputation of this franchise after the last 2 movies, I really wasn't sure if many people were fans of this movie after that. So it's glad to see the comments, but I might not get to all the comments because you guys are firing them off fast, but just to highlight some of them.
I do like Richard Victims when like Pirates needs to come back, but only in Muppet form.
Oh, dude, could you imagine Muppet Pirates of the Caribbean? That would be delightful.
That would be great. Like, this is actually like I watched this, like, I did watch this one documentary, I probably showed you, like, the Accidentally Genius one, like, on YouTube. Like, Stephen Krutchich, I think is the guy that did that, or Stephen. It's like, and he talked about how, like, before this movie, pirates are basically box office poison.
Oh, yeah. You had Cutthroat Island, you had, I mean, yeah, a lot of Cutthroat Island's a big example, but
I mean, that was like the biggest example why nobody touched pirates outside of the Muppets.
I mean, even like Waterworld was kind of a pirate movie.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, it had water, so.
Okay, let's see. Lucas Green says, from my perspective, I say the original is something special. They tried to replicate the formula in the sequels, especially trying to recapture Jack's formula, but it never clicked as well as the first. You know what the sequels had, though, Lucas Green? They had mother frickin' Davy Jones. Yeah.
and not the monkey Davy Jones.
Oh God. I mean, I am such a fanboy of Davy Jones. I can't wait to get into Dead Man's Chest when, in 2026, baby. Okay, Kogias, Johnny Depp and Jeffrey Rush really carry this film and the sequels. Yes, but I will say I have a huge soft spot for Jack Davenport in the first two movies, and I cannot wait to talk about Norrington.
Oh, yeah.
I have a huge soft spot for Norrington.
All the characters in at least this first movie are fantastic.
Even Governor Swan is an amazing character.
He's just delightful. I mean, how can you describe him? Just like he's an understanding father, especially for like the 1700s. It's like he's just like he's not even really that much of a jerk. Really, he's just like he's just a guy doing his duty most of the time.
He is not a jerk at all in the slightest. That man is a freaking saint. Anyways,
I mean, as opposed to like a lot of actual governors of the Caribbean, he's actually pretty nice.
Right. Okay. Let's see. Kogia says, Will and Elizabeth may have as much screen time as Jack Sparrow, but Jack Sparrow was made the film and the franchise in general so iconic. Yeah. I will defend Will and Elizabeth, especially in Dead Man's Chest. I think that's where both of those characters shine the most. In this movie, yeah, Elizabeth in particular isn't really the most. I don't know, though. I feel like
I still think she's a good character in this movie.
She is a good character. I just feel like the sequels she kind of like gradually improved with each sequel.
Where she basically become Queen of the Pirates.
Exactly. So it's like comparing that to like her role in the first movie, it's a little bit of a downgrade, but she still has a good role to play here.
Although it was kind of interesting how she goes from basically being a pirate fangirl to being Queen of the Pirates.
Okay. Kogia says, I remember that Robert De Niro was offered the role of Jack Sparrow. Jesus, can you imagine? God.
I mean, it would definitely be.
I mean, I love De Niro, but that would not have fit.
Like, and it's a role he openly regretted not taking after he said, like, wait, this movie's being successful.
Granted, though, I think he played an awesome pirate in Stardust.
The thing, I actually haven't seen that movie, but from what I understand, he took that role because of this.
Well, he has one of my favorite freaking naming, like, origin backstories for a name ever in Stardust, where his name is Captain Shakespeare because the crew on his ship are so uneducated that they don't really know who Shakespeare is. They just hear Shakespeare. Oh, it's awesome. He's awesome in that movie. Anyways. Okay, guys. Sorry, I don't want to just, I'm trying to do back and forth. Like, there's a lot to get to with this movie. I watched a bad movie, and then I came back to watch an okay movie. I thought it was better than I remember. Oh, God. Don't be mean, Richard's victims. They need to do a PG-13 live action of The Black Cauldron. I mean, honestly, low-key, yes. If they actually get someone with a creative vision behind it, I think that'd be awesome.
Guillermo del Toro.
What?
Guillermo del Toro.
Oh, God. Oh, he'd be amazing. Oh. I mean, it'd be like, oh, God, could you imagine Guillermo del Toro just, like, approaching Disney? Like, I'm not going to do the Spanish accent because that might be insulting, but so, guys, I know just to make up for Haunted Mansion, why don't I turn The Black Cauldron into a big box office success? Why don't I do that for you guys? All right.
It would be nice. We have Theme Park Priest here.
Yeah. Hey there, Priest. Hope you're doing well. I believe you're still in Tennessee, right, Priest? Let's see. Whose movie is this more, Jack or Will's? I would definitely say Jack is the main character of Curse of the Black Pearl. Honestly, though, this might be like low key. I honestly think the whole trilogy, when you break it down, Will's got the biggest character arc.
Oh yeah, for sure. Man,
I honestly think the trilogy as a whole kind of belongs to him. Even though Orlando Bloom is maybe not the most, I love Orlando Bloom, but he's not the most charismatic actor.
he kind of fits for Will though.
He does.
I mean, I think he definitely turns up the charm for this movie and everything. So,
I mean, I think thematically, Jack Sparrow, like, it makes sense that Jack Sparrow is the main character in this movie thematically. I honestly think Dead Man's Chest, even though Jack Sparrow is, obviously still a big focal point of that movie, I honestly think that might be more Will's movie. Just because he's like the main catalyst of the plot, like the whole way through.
I mean, that whole movie is basically Will Turner versus Davy Jones.
Right. Okay. I love Robert De Niro, but I can't see him as Sparrow. De Niro has a lot of range. He's generally known for playing mob guys and grumpy old man, but he can play cartoonish characters really well. Oh, Fearless Leader is a good example. My whole thing though is I just don't really. I don't know, like, Jack Sparrow had sex appeal, and I don't think De Niro would. I mean, I love De Niro, but I feel like there's kind of like that dangerous, roguish quality of Jack Sparrow. Yeah. I definitely know he's got range. I just think Johnny Depp was like at the perfect time in his career. Okay.
I mean, there's a reason why Johnny Depp got nominated for an Academy Award for this role.
Indeed. Okay. Comments done. Let's get to the background, ladies and gentlemen, because I have a story for you all that I have probably told on the podcast before at some point. I was actually in the parks at Disneyland for the Pirates of the Caribbean premiere. Granted, when we planned this trip, we had no idea that it was going to happen, and it was actually a huge detriment to the trip. But it's cool to say that I was there. I remember the day that the actual premiere happened. They had like the big red carpet rolled down Main Street. What happened was they had people like lining up to go on the red carpet as early as when the park opened. And I was like, I am not wasting a full park day just to go on the red carpet. No, thank you. Or I'm sorry, not be on the red carpet, but like be in the crowd as the people go down the red carpet. But the main thing I remember that was actually a huge pain in the ass was the fact that the bleachers, Jacob, the giant bleachers all over the riverfront along New Orleans Square, because they were projecting the movie onto a big screen on Tom Sawyer's Island. So I just vividly remember, like, oh my God, you just, the whole New Orleans Square, riverfront, it was ruined. I mean, it was cool. Like I said, I wouldn't change that trip and like go back a week later when the premiere wasn't happening, because I think it's a cool story that I was there. Yeah. But man, it was a pain in the ass to navigate like on a day-to-day park level. And I also want to quote one of the kind of like news stations that was covering the event, just because this quote has always stuck with me and I think it's kind of adorable. They were like, the park closed early so that guests wouldn't walk out of It's a Small World and into Johnny Depp. I'm like, oh my God. The thing with my sister, Jacob, that I want to mention with this movie is that I vividly remember me and her were watching ABC. I have no idea what we were actually watching at the time, what actual show, but we didn't know that this was going to happen. But along comes Orlando Bloom on the screen on a pirate ship, and he's saying, yo, I'm in the new Pirates of the Caribbean movie, which we did not know at the time because the internet was a different place, and we didn't like instantly know who was going to be in what movie like 5 years before the movies came out. So not only is Orlando Bloom in the movie, which is awesome because, like I said, we are like at the peak of our Lord of the Rings fandom at this point, but also they were premiering the first full trailer. Jacob, I swear to God, that was one of the best nights of my life.
I can imagine.
That was so fucking satisfying. And because just going into background, I want to talk about background just kind of like from a personal level. I was always very curious about this movie. Obviously, the Country Bears, just that movie is what it is. I would like to revisit it sometime, but I'm honestly terrified to.
Yeah.
But Pirates of the Caribbean, like I remember as a kid, I was definitely not cynical about the idea of a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Yeah, but I also very much remember other people older and perceivably smarter than me being very cynical about the idea of a Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
I remember because I do remember seeing this. Like, this was not their first foray into making a movie based on one of their rides, as you mentioned, Country Bears.
And also Tower of Terror.
That was a TV movie,
Yeah.
I haven't actually seen that, so I can't say as to its quality.
Mm-hmm. And but I do remember kind of like the gradual tone shift around the movie. I remember when that first trailer came out, not the one with Orlando Bloom introducing it on ABC, but the first teaser trailer. Do you remember what the first teaser trailer was?
Wasn't it just them walking underneath the walking underneath the pirate ship in the water?
No, it was I think it showed the skeleton. Yeah, I think they were walking underneath a pirate ship. It was the skeleton crew, and then the big wow moment of the trailer was like big ass skeleton foot just stomps down center frame.
Oh yeah.
But I remember people were kind of like, okay, that's a little bit of a darker tone. And then I do think that when Orlando Bloom fucking came on his little pirate ship and introduced the trailer, I generally think I at least from my circles, because I was very much in the teen demographic at the time, the mood definitely shifted. Like, people were excited about this thing. And Jacob, all I can tell you is that when this movie came out, my God, it was the summer of Pirates of the Caribbean for me as a kid. I was obsessed with the ride. I'm pretty sure I went to go see this movie in theaters 5 times, Jacob. Wow. 5 times. I was just, but the thing that really captured my imagination that we'll talk about with this movie really was the world building. I feel like the world building in this series does not get the respect it deserves. But we'll get into all that. Of course, casting Johnny Depp was a big kind of question mark. No one really knew what to expect from that. Up until then, he had really, his biggest role had been Edward Scissorhands. So it was kind of like, Edward Scissorhands is a pirate? Really? But yeah, he just obviously nailed it.
And obviously going from that to this just shows how versatile he really was.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, that's my personal nostalgia and background surrounding the movie. Going through the comments once again. The Lord of the Rings talents let Orlando Bloom's talent shine more? Yeah, maybe. Honestly, with Orlando Bloom and the Lord of the Rings movies, I think The Two Towers was probably his high point. And I don't really think he has all that great of a performance in those movies. I really just think the appeal of Legolas is just badass elf with a bow. Yeah.
and of course, they're taking the hobbits to Isengard.
They're taking the hobbits to Isengard. Of course.
You can't bring up his role in that without mentioning the taking the hobbits to Isengard.
That is like the second most favorite line in that, the second most famous line in that movie after potatoes. All right, Little Blue says Jim Carrey and Steve Martin. I mean, Jim Carrey I could totally buy, but Steve Martin, really?
I have no idea.
That would be wild, man. That would be wild. Jim Carrey I could totally buy though. I like bring Jim Carrey back for the reboot right now.
He would definitely make an interesting pirate.
Absolutely.
Maybe not Jack Sparrow the way we see.
No, not Jack Sparrow, but I could see himself like inventing a new character that is as good as Jack Sparrow.
Oh yeah.
Okay, let's see. Johnny Depp was nominated for an Oscar for this film, but he didn't win. He said he didn't want to win an Oscar. Okay, sure, Johnny. It was probably Wonderful World of Disney. That sounds like a fair assumption. Along comes Orlando Bloom in a pirate ship. I hate when that happens.
Most people would actually love if that happened.
I mean, did Orlando Bloom make his entrance into the Hobbit trilogy on a pirate ship? Because he really wasn't welcome in that.
Yeah, he did. There was no. He didn't. Maybe he exited on a pirate ship, but I don't know if he entered on one.
When that happens, just ignore the boy in the water, and bad things won't happen to you. You leave the country bears alone. He has the greatest line in cinematic history when Walkins just goes, Baz!
Oh, Walken.
Question I have about this film is how old is Elizabeth supposed to be? This is a very good question. Yeah, I remember her actress. She was 17 at the time because I remember there were a lot of interviews from Keira Knightley saying how she had to have like a parental escort on the set.
I think the character's at least supposed to be probably 18 or something.
I honestly it was never the Orlando Bloom thing that bothered me because they clearly show both of those characters as kids around the same age. What bothered me, and we'll get into this, let's kind of just start breaking down the movie a little bit, is fucking Norrington. I mean, I love Norrington. But the dude is a creep, Jacob. And I will say that almost all of my love for Norrington has to do with Dead Man's Chest. Norrington and Dead Man's Chest is like one of my weird movie hyperfixations. I have always just fucking loved him in that movie. In this movie, I think Jack Davenport does a really, really good job being a foil to Jack Sparrow. And I think he really doesn't get enough credit for that. That being said, all the stuff with Elizabeth is creepy.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that it probably would be fairly accurate to the time period.
True, but in the flashback, I mean, I get that he's probably supposed to be like a teenager, but that dude looks like a grown-ass man, and it's played by the same actor, literally interacting with a child. Honestly, if the flashback wasn't there, I don't think the creep factor would be there.
Yeah, I think it's just that he's supposed to be, a lot like. I always believed that they were supposed to be similar in age, considering, like, he doesn't. You get what I'm saying, right? I always thought they were like similar in age, close to being in the same age.
But like I said, it's just hard to make that distinction when it's literally like a child actress playing the child version of this character next to grown-ass adult Jack Davenport.
I mean, to be fair, we don't actually know the age difference between Norrington and Elizabeth in universe.
In universe, yes. I'm just saying they should have cast a scrawny teenage boy as Norrington in that flashback. I don't know.
You get what I'm saying. I mean, age gap is a thing. So, I mean, I see where you're coming from. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. But the flashback is, like I said, the movie just starts without any logos. First off, that was like definitely an interesting choice.
Yeah, and after the flashback, I do kind of want to jump around a little bit, but with that flashback, I do think it sets a really good tone. As far as character building goes, like you said, I feel like it sets up a really interesting backstory between Elizabeth and Will and how they know each other. It sets up, like you said, Elizabeth as like being basically a nerd for pirates without going the cringy like Raya and the Last Dragons. We're dragon nerds. Jacob, that's still like my least favorite thing in that whole movie. You know, it's like they set it up really well. They set up Gibbs. Fucking Gibbs, another man who never gets enough credit in these movies.
Yeah, it establishes her love of pirates by her singing, of course, A Pirate's Life for Me.
Mm-hmm. Of course, we get introduced to the greatest father in Disney history in Governor Swan.
He's a good father, I'll give you that.
Actually, I find this stuff fascinating. Yes, that's what concerns me.
He's just a guy looking out for his daughter.
Okay, and then we get to present day, and with Will Turner, one thing I want to highlight with Will Turner, legitimately one of my all-time favorite gags in movie history, Jacob. The fucking candle holder.
He's just like
how perfect is that? And I'm pretty sure it was a flub too. I'm pretty sure they just went with it. I'm pretty sure that was a blooper. So with that is like literally the first thing that you see of Will Turner as an adult, where he's just awkwardly standing around and he doesn't know what to do with his hands. So he like grazes this candlestick holder only for it to fucking break on him, and he stashes it into this vase thing. I love it. Everything about this dude's personality and how he is so not a pirate is just so perfectly captured in that one little moment. I love it so much.
Just the fact that it makes a loud noise.
Right.
And then he just like stashed it like the umbrella holder. Or I don't know what that thing is, but he just stashed it in like the nearest bin.
And you know what else? You know what else that scene does really well is that it establishes that this movie is going to be funny.
Yep, it had to have a sense of humor.
And it's these little touches like that. When movies have little moments like that just establish, I don't know, basically this is like a long-winded way of saying they don't make them like they used to.
It's like the funny thing is this movie is like a modern example of like an old-fashioned like pulp movie.
Totally.
Kind of like Raiders of the Lost Ark 20 years before this.
I'm so glad you bring that up. I'm honestly surprised I haven't brought this example up yet. But Pirates of the Caribbean is absolutely 100%, in my opinion, to the 2000s what Star Wars was to the 70s and Indiana Jones was to the 80s.
Like a revitalization of an old genre.
And a blockbuster franchise that was original and not just, an adaptation. I mean, obviously it was an adaptation of the ride, but, it's original enough of a concept. They basically use the ride as like barely even a jumping off point. It really is its own thing.
Basically, it was just like, okay, there are pirates in the Caribbean. There you go.
I would say the biggest thing they drew from was the whole cursed treasure thing, which we'll get into. But
and of course the song, song. But like outside of that, it's like they basically made up the story for the movie, which is great.
Okay, going back through some comments here. As a kid, I didn't know who Orlando Bloom was. I knew so little about him that I assumed he was the guy who played Davy Jones. It's funny.
That's Bill Nye.
Bill Nighy, the science guy.
Yes.
Legitimately, Jacob, did you have a moment when you read that was going to be the actor playing Davy Jones where you were like, wait a minute, Bill Nye, the science guy?
I mean, honestly, no, because I didn't know how to... Because I didn't hear his name or how to pronounce it until later.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I didn't know how to pronounce his name until I read it's supposed to be pronounced like Nye.
I think by the point that is it supposed to be pronounced Nye?
I believe so. Yeah.
Like the Y is silent.
Yeah, I think so. Hey, at least it's supposed to be similar.
I'm just gonna go with Nighy just to separate it from Bill Nye, the science guy. Anyways, Okay, let's see. Elizabeth does seem more of a catalyst to get the ball rolling in this film. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like in the second movie, she's very clearly got a lot of agency in that second movie. But here, not so much.
And I learned apparently it is pronounced Nye. Sometimes some things do so as Nye and things like that.
Richard's Victims, I appreciate the random fighting around the world reference. That is one of my favorite South Park episodes. Oh, man. Recently, it's been reported that Johnny Depp is supposedly interested in working with Disney again. Disney is just, I don't know what to say about Disney at this point, the state that they're in. Some argue that Jack's film, as he has a connection to Barbossa. Yeah. That's kind of where my head's at. The movie is called The Curse of the Black Pearl, so...
Yeah, which to be fair, was a tacked on title that Gore Verbinski didn't want.
This is true. Disney tried making a Pirates of the Caribbean film without Johnny Depp or Jack Sparrow. That would have certainly flopped. Yeah, that was going to be Margot Robbie, right? Margot Robbie is Red. I don't know. I honestly think that would have been interesting depending on the director. I don't think that was going to be dead in the water like... I think it had potential just because of Margot Robbie.
I don't know if it's officially been canceled, though. It's just that she obviously has a lot of other stuff going on.
Okay, Code Geass, I am mostly being ironic about my love of Governor Swan. I just love how bubbly and funny he is. He's not really that great of a dad when you break it down like that.
Like I said, he's still trying his best, and obviously, that was the norm. Some of the stuff he did was the norm for the time period.
Okay, so, Jonathan Pryce played Adam Sandler's dad in Bedtime Stories. Were those flashbacks? I hope those were flashbacks, because that is not a big age difference.
I have no idea. I had no idea he was even in Bedtime Stories.
Rumored since 2017. The fifth film even had a post-credit scene. Yeah, I know. Okay, back on track. Let's break down some more of these characters. I already so with Will Turner, like I said, I do think that in general, he's not the greatest character in this movie. He's mostly just kind of like, the catalyst to get the ball rolling with Jack. But I will say, like I said, that freaking candlestick scene just does a lot to establish his personality.
And of course you get the sword fight scene, which explains a lot of his character too. Like the whole blacksmith scene's it's like, okay, he's the one mainly doing this, and of course it's like, pass my words of praise unto your master. It's like, I shall. He's like, yeah, I'm the one who built this jackass.
Yeah, right.
It's like his master's just a drunken.
His master, frankly, seems pretty worthless for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, he's basically a drunken slob who only got the credit for capturing Jack just by smacking him on the back of the head with a bottle. Speaking of which, speaking of character introductions, how about Jack Sparrow's character?
God, I mean, honestly, it is a wonderful character introduction. I think the one in Dead Man's Chest is even better. But yeah, this is wonderful.
It's like you just see this mysterious man on top of a small ship's mast, just trying to prevent it from sinking. He covers his heart with his hat, is in a salute to the hanged pirates. Pirates, ye beware! And of course, as the music swells, he's on top of the mast as it's sinking, and takes a step onto the dock.
I mean, that is such an iconic shot, and I really feel like that shot just encapsulates everything about Gore Verbinski's directing style.
And keep in mind, this is like one of Verbinski's early movies. Like, he only had like The Ring before this.
I mean, I don't know. Gore Verbinski just does such a freaking good job with these movies, just like directorially. I will say, just, we are talking about the trilogy as a whole. Obviously, we'll break down the individual movies as the anniversaries come up. I do think that At World's End is a pretty significant step down. And on any given day, I almost prefer Dead Man's Chest over Curse of the Black Pearl. So my opinions of this trilogy are all over the place. I appreciated At World's End a little bit more the last time I saw it, but not by much. It's still it's a downgrade compared to the other two.
Yeah, to be fair.
Um,
as far as like previous movies goes, before this was Mouse Hunt.
Oh man, Mouse Hunt. Jesus.
The Mexican?
I remember that one too.
And The Ring.
The Mexican is probably how Johnny Depp got cast.
Was Johnny Depp in that movie?
Yes.
Huh.
Weirdly enough.
But
I don't think he played the titular Mexican. At least I hope he didn't. But
I have no idea. But The Ring, he only had like those three theatrical movies before he directed this. So,
and weirdly enough, out of those three, I think the one that's closest to this movie is freaking Mouse Hunt.
I mean, to be fair, The Ring kind of does like tap into like the horror elements that this movie has.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just when I think of his style, I think of like the over the top, elaborate like Rube Goldberg machine like set pieces and stuff.
It's hard to believe this guy would also go on to direct Rango.
Yeah, Rango's a solid one too, man. I love Rango.
Oh yeah, I do too. Like, hola. Talk about a great character introduction.
Richard's Victims, I'm glad you appreciate that line. I appreciate that.
Okay.
All right. Kogia says, I like the third Pirates film more than most people. It rivals the first film. Ooh, man. I mean, I respect you liking it more than most people, but ooh, that's a hot take that it rivals the first film.
I honestly think it's a bit too long.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely got its moments. Sure.
I mean, the final fight is epic.
Beckett's demise, dude. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, for sure. Very poetic end.
Mm-hmm. I enjoy this one the most. It's the most simplistic plot compared to the others. It's the least confused on what's going on. I mean, I agree. I will say that when I rewatched Dead Man's Chest earlier this year, honestly, a lot of the kind of confusing elements of it sort of clarified just because I felt like I was able to decipher the broader themes being explored in a way that I just wasn't able to as a teenager watching the movie. So I don't know. Dead Man's Chest is definitely worth a revisit.
It's kind of interesting, like how adult these movies are.
I mean, Dead Man's Chest, especially, man. I can't wait to talk about that movie. Okay. Kogia says I like all five Pirates films. The fourth is easily my least favorite. Hard agree. I also find the fifth one to be underrated. The fifth one's not a masterpiece by any means, but I actually think I like the fifth one a little bit better than At World's End.
Yeah, the fifth one had like a lot of interesting things going for it.
It's got some really fun set pieces. I actually really do like Javier Bardem. Sure, his character is pretty much generic Davy Jones, but I still like him. He's got a presence.
Yeah, he brought charm and charisma to the role.
I mean, and who can argue with Barbosa? Just come on, any movie with Barbosa in it.
And the funny thing is, like later, like just a few years later, he played another fish man.
True.
Like Javier,
you're a mermaid.
And he played. Yep, he's played. You can say he's played two fishmen in his career.
Javier Bardem in The Little Mermaid is honestly just. It's such a mood, Jacob. It's such a mood.
I haven't seen the new movie, so I can't really say anything.
Oh man, I mean, he is like I genuinely really do like the new Little Mermaid. I actually think it's probably the best live action remake, in my opinion, MIO. But Javier Bardem sticks out like a sore thumb. That dude is not having a fun time.
I mean, I'm pretty certain I'd probably like it too if I actually saw it.
I mean, you see it for Haley. It's worth seeing for Haley. She's a fucking star.
I mean, so far I think the best ones are probably like Cinderella and Jungle Book.
I think I like it better than Jungle Book. I don't like Jungle Book as much as most people do, honestly. I'd have to rewatch Cinderella. Cinderella is probably a contender.
Yeah, I mean, those are the two I'll definitely defend when it comes to when it's like their live action remakes.
Mhm.
But like I said, I have not seen the new Little Mermaid, so I can't say anything about Javier Bardem and that. I just knew that he was in it, and when you mentioned him in 5, I was like, well, you know, he's played 2 fishmen in just like less than a decade.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying about At World's End. I certainly do like Jack and Barbossa's interactions. What are you doing? No, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
My favorite Disney remake is Alice in Wonderland. It's the film that made me a Johnny Depp fan. That's cool. I respect that. I have a really weird antidote about Johnny Depp's performance in that movie, and that is that to prepare for that movie, he specifically listened to a shit ton of a band that I really like.
Huh.
Anyways, let's move on to probably for me the man who makes the entire franchise, and that is freaking Hector Barbossa, man.
Hector Barbossa.
Barbossa is just such a fucking wonderful character.
In this movie, he's a great villain.
He's an awesome villain. I think I almost like him even more as an anti-hero, but yeah, he is an awesome villain.
I mean, he wasn't even really in Dead Man's Chest until literally the last scene.
But I will say, Jacob, to this day, just as a teaser of my opinions on Dead Man's Chest, that was one of the most electric midnight screenings I have ever been to in my life. And Barbossa walking down those fucking stairs at the end of that movie, I swear to God, it was a bigger crowd reaction than anything I saw in Endgame. Like, the crowd just went bananas. That's still to this day probably my all-time favorite movie theater moment.
I don't remember if I saw it at midnight premiere. I think I might have. That actually might have been like, you know, when midnight premieres were actually at midnight.
Oh yeah, Jacob, we could do a whole podcast on midnight screenings. Trust, I have a lot to say about that.
Like I said, I'm not sure if it actually was midnight or just the Friday it came out. But I do remember seeing Dead Man's Chest when it came out, and like with my sister and her husband at the time. But and they were both big fans of Pirates of the Caribbean, and obviously seeing Barbossa was electrifying, basically. And that is actually
the crowd reaction for Barbossa in that movie was so loud that I swear to God, I didn't even hear the line that he says at the end of the movie. I didn't even hear, "So tell me, what's become of me ship?" Oh God. So Barbossa in this movie, though, I love his mixture of intimidation and just sheer bona fide class.
Oh yeah, it's like
and he also just has such a poetic way of speaking about the curse.
It's like, look, we are cursed men, Mister. I don't feel anything, not the wind on my face or the spray of the sea, nor the warmth of a woman's flesh. You best start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner. You're in one.
Yeah, and also Slasher Thread. I'm sorry. This is a typo because it is not because you are in one. It is YER. You're in one. You're in one.
You'd best start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner.
You're in one. And then after that, I just love the thing no one talks about with that moment is I love how he punctuates that moment with, "Look at me, I'm gonna make a wine reference, or I'm gonna make a ride reference. Look at this wine go down my ribcage." And then also, of course, the ha 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 ha. Ho 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 ho. What are you laughing at? Get back to work.
And though, to be fair, that the whole wine scene is effective in the movie, it just shows basically oh my God.
Right.
I mean, you see the hand reaching for Jack Sparrow earlier, But that's like the first. That's like the first time you actually see like, okay, there's definitely something freaky going on here.
Uh-huh.
It's like that whole scene is like epic. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. They actually on the bonus features in the DVD, they actually had a whole 20-minute featurette just on conceptualizing and prevising that sequence.
I think I've seen that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I could talk about that DVD in itself for hours. It had like 3 different commentaries on it, I think.
Yeah, like I said with Dragon on another show we did, the golden age of bonus features seems to have died.
Oh yes, the golden age of bonus features was very much the early to mid 2000s, I think.
Oh yeah, they're like, oh hey, we have digital video with disc. We can do whatever we want.
Oh man, those were the days, dude.
It seems like with Blu-ray, they're like, okay, we can forget all that.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
okay, Lucas Green, in regards to Barbossa, he says, I'd say he's anti-Jack Sparrow. He's the anti-Jack Sparrow. He's straightforward thinking. He reacts how you or me would regarding most situations, and you have to be specific with what you bargain with him. Yeah, that's a really good point. He is like, Jack Sparrow is very much like the flamboyant rock star pirate. And weirdly enough, I mean, I never really thought about it that way, Lucas Green, but Barbossa really is kind of the everyman pirate. That's a really interesting way to look at it. Okay, some of the side characters we have to bring up. Obviously, Pintel and Rigetti.
Oh yeah, I love those guys.
I will say, I think by the end of the franchise, especially at World's End, they got a little long in the tooth. I would even say they were getting a little long in the tooth with how much screen time they had in Dead Man's Chest.
Like,
but
admittedly, probably my favorite scenes are like, "It's the Bible. You get points for trying."
But in this movie, I think they are perfect. They are perfect comic relief, and I also really love how in the opening, like when they first appear, when they're ransacking the town, Jacob, they are genuinely intimidating.
It's like I mean, one of the outside of like the like obviously all the skeleton stuff, like the scene that like the creepiest scene that stuck out to me the most was Pintel blocking the light, going, "Hello, puppet."
Another iconic trailer moment, yes.
Hello, puppet.
Hello, puppet.
I mean, it's not terrifying per se, but it is pretty dang creepy.
And that is one, again, I love Dead Man's Chest with all my heart. I will defend it with my dying breath. But I will say that probably the most disappointing thing about that movie is that they just totally, like, Pintel and Rigetti are just cartoon characters at that point. Like, they are not realistic, intimidating pirates at all. They are just straight up like the C-3PO and R2-D2 of the franchise.
Like, Lucas Green also brings up, like, there's a lot of good duos in this franchise. Now he mentions it with the two Navy guys.
Yes, the 2 Navy guys who man... I wish they would have. Could you imagine if they had an arc with Beckett and they like? I could picture them having an arc where in the second movie they're like going along with Beckett, and then maybe in the third movie they actually turn on Beckett and join the pirates. That would be amazing.
That would have been interesting.
I would have loved that. They are very much kind of like the forgotten, like, great parts of this first movie. Like, nobody ever brings them up.
I mean, they were like the first like minor characters to interact with Jack Sparrow.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I said no lies. I think he's telling the truth. But of course he told the truth, knowing that you wouldn't believe him. This movie has like so many quotable lines.
Oh God, this whole movie is quotable. Yes.
I mean,
they should have Jack Sparrow fight Captain Hook. Absolutely. That would honestly be my go-to pick for a villain in a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Just do it. Just do it at this point. I don't see why not. And I also think, given all the other crazy sea creatures and lore and shit in this movie, the giant crocodile honestly wouldn't be that out of place.
They just have to justify going to Neverland.
I don't even think you need to go to Neverland. Just have a captain named Hook who got his hand chopped off and fed to a crocodile. It can obviously take inspiration from Peter Pan, but I don't think you need a Neverland or a Peter Pan. I really don't.
That's a good point.
I mean, Barbossa's like a human Mr. Krabs. Oh my god. Oh god, Jeffrey Rush for live action Mr. Krabs.
He did say Davy Jones first, which made me say, "Do you fear death, me boy?"
That is honestly, like, as far as quotable lines go, I feel like that line that you just mentioned is one of my favorite lines, specifically for how he says it. The whole, like, do you fear death?
Do you fear death?
Yeah, you can't quote that line without having the inflections.
It's a very strange Scottish kind of thing.
I love it though. Okay, anyways, with the characters in this movie, we have to talk about the crew because first of all, like, it is so freaking surreal to see Zoe freaking Saldana in this movie, Jacob.
Yeah, before she was famous playing aliens of different colors.
Yeah. I mean, it is, and she's also another kind of like, she was a relatively big role in this movie. Like, I would say out of all the crew members, besides maybe Gibbs, she probably had the biggest role.
Yeah, she was actually one of the few that had a name that on the crew that actually spoke more than like 2 lines.
Mm-hmm. I will say that the crew getting character development in the sequels is one of my favorite parts of the sequels.
It's like Mr. Cotton's parrot.
That's another iconic duo in this franchise, Cotton and Cotton's parrot.
Yep.
Also, Jack and Jack the Monkey. I love Jack the Monkey. Oh my god.
Yeah, unfortunately,
we named the monkey Jack.
Yeah, unfortunately, as Code Geass points out, Zoe Saldana did not have a good experience working on this movie, so that's why she didn't.
Oh, I didn't hear about that. That's interesting.
It's like I don't think they've ever gone to the exact specifics, but like she didn't have a very good time filming it, and almost considered quitting. Filmmaking altogether.
Holy shit! Damn! How have I not heard about this?
I don't know. I mean, we're fortunate she didn't, because then she obviously we know her as Aurora, we know her as Neytiri, Gamora. Mm-hmm. She's basically made a name for herself in huge blockbusters now.
Yeah.
So it is kind of interesting to see her in this.
And I do have a soft spot for Marty.
Which one's Marty again?
The dwarf.
Oh yeah, I just didn't know his name.
Yes.
It's like I do like that guy. I mean, I don't think his name is mentioned in this movie, and I haven't seen like Dead Man's Chest in years.
His name is definitely mentioned in Dead Man's Chest.
I said I haven't seen the movie in years, so basically, I remember obviously Davy Jones, the music box, and the freaking crow eating the guy's eye,
mm-hmm.
which is like one of my first like, oh my god.
Yeah, Gibbs is lucky he's the only character besides Jack and Barbossa to be in all 5 films. Gibbs is such an interesting character in this franchise to me. I don't know. I wish that they would go into a little bit more specifics about his backstory, like how he went from the British Navy to, like winding up in Tortuga basically as a ride reference. But
sleeping with the pigs.
But I kind of like the mystery behind it, though.
It's like even Elizabeth is confused. Like, Mr. Gibbs,
right, yeah. I don't know. I feel like Gibbs, his role within the series. I mean, we kind of talked about Barbossa being the everyman pirate. I would say Barbossa is more like kind of like the capitalist pirate. Gibbs, I think, is very much the everyman pirate.
I mean, you can tell he's basically like almost seen everything at this point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like he's not fazed by like a lot of what Jack does and everything. And of course I love the introduction of like him being splashed, and then like being splashed, he's like, "Blast! I'm already awake."
That was for the smell.
And he's like, yeah, okay, you got me there.
Will is very sassy in these movies. That is one thing I will give him credit for.
That was for the smell.
Also, speaking of Turner, really quick, I just want to highlight the performance on Orlando Bloom. Probably the most charming moment Orlando Bloom gets in this movie. The first time Jack and him steal the ship, and he's just writing up like, "I avast,"
and then they all just crack up and laugh.
Just adorable.
Like he definitely goes from. You can say he went from being an amateur pirate to he's a professional pirate at the end.
He's a pirate.
Yeah. I had to throw in professional pirate somewhere in this.
Which, by the way, I mean, we haven't brought it up yet, but the music, dude.
Oh, yeah, Klaus Badelt knocks it out of the park.
I mean, this is... I genuinely think this is like one of the last great movie soundtracks. I mean, we've had awesome ones, but this is like... This is in that same sort of Star Wars, Indiana Jones mold where you cannot separate the movie and the music. The movie and the music are like one in the same.
I mean, everybody knows that. A lot of people think it's Hans Zimmer, but it's actually Klaus Badelt who did the score for this.
Are you sure it's not Hans Zimmer?
I mean, I think he might have like worked on it as a score producer or something.
I'm pretty sure Hans Zimmer worked on it, but
yeah, he worked on it, but the music is credited to Klaus Badelt.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if he actually did like the dun 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 theme, but he did work.
I honestly think Hans Zimmer might have written "He's a Pirate," which is that theme.
I mean, that is fair, but
let me look it up.
All right. I mean,
no, you're right.
Apparently, it was originally going to be Alan.
Pirate is credited to him.
Like, apparently, it was originally going to be Alan Silvestri, from what I saw.
I could see that. Yeah.
I mean, Alan Silvestri's had some classic scores under his belt, so it would have been interesting to see what he came up with.
I don't know, man. I honestly haven't even really heard of Klaus Badelt, but the music, like I said, the music in this franchise is it just like, especially the first couple movies, just vital parts of the movie's DNA.
Oh yeah, totally. It's like the music, it definitely like it highlights everything. It's like, I mean, obviously funny enough, Hans Zimmer also worked on Muppets Treasure Island.
Yep. I honestly think that's probably where the confusion comes from.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, I'm trying to figure out exactly what he did for Pirates of the Caribbean.
Hans Zimmer? Let me look.
That came out in 2003, so like he's not listed for it at all. So, but I think he worked. I think he did work on it though.
Did he maybe do the sequels?
He did. He did Dead Man's. He basically did 2.
There we go. Yeah.
He did 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, so that's probably
And I think he worked. And I think he's Klaus Badelt is like studied under Hans Zimmer for what I understand.
Makes sense.
But as you said, like the music is like as much as big as the other stars are. The music is also a big star in this movie. I mean, like there's not one scene like the movie wouldn't be nearly as epic if it didn't have the all the like the swashbuckling epic orchestral score.
Well, again, I kind of liken it to like Star Wars and Indiana Jones. Like I really can't see watching these movies at all without this music. It's so tied to the DNA.
Oh, for sure.
All right. Let's talk about some of the set pieces.
Oh yeah, for set pieces sounds good.
So you already mentioned the opening sword fight with Will and Jack. I really like that just because of like how they, like the rafters thing is like freaking iconic. That's like some great Gore Verbinski work.
Another thing that I really get that I likened it to when I likened it to like early like Raiders specifically is like the set pieces are there, but they're not like severely overblown or overbloated or anything. It's like just like everything almost seems like practical and downscale, but still exciting. Like it's almost like an everyman battle until
sure.
Until it gets obviously gets to the end with the pirates attacking the Navy men.
It's interesting because now that you put it like that, there really isn't all that much like Rune Goldberg machine stuff happening in this movie, and I didn't really think about it until you just mentioned that. Because, like, my God, when we get to Dead Man's Chest, Jacob, it's like Rune Goldberg Machine City in that movie.
I mean, those are pretty epic and sweet in their own right. But
I love those set pieces.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I do too. They're great. But like I said, for this movie, they're more understated, and obviously, like Whereas those were more just action set pieces. These also tell story beats with the characters themselves. It shows these characters who they are.
Mm-hmm. As far as the story goes, it's I really do think it has a good pace where obviously all the stuff in Port Royal, just kind of setting up the characters, the pieces on the chessboard, so to speak. The town's introduction to Jack Sparrow, the iconic "This will be the day that you almost caught Jack Sparrow,
Captain Jack Sparrow."
All that is iconic. The jail cell with the dog. I mean, come on, that's member berries before member berries were a thing, Jacob.
It's lifted straight from the ride.
Oh yeah.
And it's that is without doubt the worst pirate I've ever heard of.
But you have heard of me.
And I love how that keeps getting repeated. Without doubt is the worst pirate I've ever seen. And then that is the best pirate I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great runner.
That's but so it would seem.
But I do really like the pace of the Barbossa's crew comes in, Elizabeth gets kidnapped, Will pursues him with Jack, they get to the caves, but then Lucas Green does bring up where the pace starts to slow, and I do agree with him. This is probably the slowest part of the when they leave the island and they're chasing each other. That is the slowest part of the movie. I will agree with you there.
I mean, I do like the ship battle, though.
The ship battle, yeah, it does pick up at the ship battle, yeah.
Yeah, the ship battles. I mean, especially when they try to get rid of everything, then they had to improvise using all their equipment.
So honestly, the part of the movie that has grown on me the most over the years, where it's when I was a kid, I used to think it was kind of a weird sort of plot cul-de-sac, and now I realize it's a vital part of the character development of both of these people is the island stuff. I mean, first of all, obviously gives birth to one of the great memes in this franchise. Why is the rum gone?
Yes, of course. Why is the rum gone?
Why is the rum always gone? But I don't know. I just really, really love the dynamic between Jack and Elizabeth. How Jack wants to. He's clearly infatuated by her, but she is obviously grossed out by him, and yet she knows how to manipulate him. I mean, that's going to be a big driving force in Dead Man's Chest. But in this movie, it's still, there's still a lot of it in there. People kind of say it came out of nowhere in Dead Man's Chest, but I say just watch that island scene, dude. It's right there.
Yeah, I mean, I watched through that, and it's he's clearly putting advances on her, and she's pretending to be drunk. It's Mr. Sparrow, I don't think we're drunk enough for that kind of talk.
So yeah, I don't know. It's weird because, like I said, when I was a kid, I really didn't think the island stuff added much. But now, as an adult, I honestly think it's one of the most vital pieces of character development in the whole trilogy. It's weird how that works.
Okay, and it highlights Elizabeth's resourcefulness by burning the rum.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's the entire Royal Navy is out here looking for me, and that stack is at least 1,000 feet high. There's barely any chance they won't see it. But why is the rum gone? I mean, that's basically, and that is a great also the revelation of Jack's character. It's with the legend being more interesting than what actually happened, and how he built the legend. He escaped the island just by waiting to get drunk, and then these people came by and rescued him.
I will say one of my absolute favorite little details in this movie that I love that they actually make a meal out of in the sequel is the whole line, the throwaway line, Jacob. And then they called me their chief. Right. And that right there kind of leads into the role building of this movie. And the real building of the franchise as a whole. I mean, like I said, I think once we hit Dead Man's Chest, they go nuts with the real building, and it is glorious. But I think in this movie, it's still, I mean, it's much more grounded. We're mostly going to real locations. Tortuga is a real place.
Oh, yeah.
But obviously we've got that sense of like there is cursed treasure and there are undead skeleton pirates running around. So it's kind of like dabbling in the magical realism a little bit. But I really like how the franchise kind of slow builds, like, there's just enough supernatural stuff going on in this movie that a lot is possible for the world building going forward. And then, like I said, once we get to Dead Man's Chest, just wrap in. I've got a lot to say about the world building in Dead Man's Chest. I think that movie is just epic when it comes to the world building.
And, of course, the music box.
Of course. But, anyways, kind of looping back around to set pieces with the finale. I do just think that sword fight between Jack and Barbossa, where they're just going in and out of the moonlight, is just sublime.
And of course, like, again, like, well, Sparrow, are we going to keep doing this for eternity until Judgment Day and trumpets sound? Or you could surrender.
But Jacob, you know what my favorite part of the climax is?
What is it?
It's the world's best dad. I think that this is honestly probably the reason I fell in love with this character. It is such a smart directing choice, I think, to keep cutting away to, it's probably only about a minute of screen time or so in the actual grand scheme of the climax. But just freaking Governor Swan dealing with that hand in the drawer I don't know. There's something just so inspired and kinetic about making that like its own thorough line within the actual climax.
I mean, it shows that he's not entirely useless.
And then I also just freaking adore. He's so adorable when he, in the climax when he comes out and he does the little like punching thing with the one pirate.
He's like, I just love like the fact that he's like, basically he only got into the altercation because he didn't want to lose his wig.
Oh God!
And then when I think my favorite part for him, like the little character moment, is like after he like disposes of the hand, keeps it in the chest, but then after the curse is broken, he opens. He's like, he's like he realizes like, oh wait, now there's like a severed hand in the chest.
Right. That is probably the darkest joke in the whole movie, I think.
It's like, yeah. And you don't even see anything.
You don't see anything, but it leaves it up to the imagination, which I think is almost worse.
Yeah, but it's like remember, it's a lot of directors say it's like it's not what you see, it's what you don't see.
Exactly.
This movie is really a master of like showing and not telling.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff in this movie that can be described as like show, don't tell.
I mean, and the exposition that we do have is more or less all delivered by Hector Barbossa and is freaking poetic.
And it's like, and I just like the whole like the Aztec curse and everything.
Right.
882 Aztec pieces. It's like that whole scene is just perfection. Apple. Like I mean, I do like apples, not Granny Smith apples like the one he has, but I actually do really enjoy apples.
I feel like that was like one of the first times that Disney tried to like, put some meta like, oh, look, it's kind of like the apple from Snow White a little bit.
I don't actually buy that.
No, that's kind of what I always thought was that it was an allusion to Snow White a little bit, like another villain with an apple.
I mean, maybe. But to be fair, he wasn't trying to kill her with it.
No, but I do think that there was some sort of an allusion to, like, I don't know, he could poison it.
For sure. I mean, it is a reasonable concern. I mean,
that's what I'm saying, yeah.
And of course, I know we're jumping around, but I just love the line, like, I'm curious. After killing me, what is it you were planning on doing next? It's like, to be fair, like, you killed the captain and he's still surrounded by a bunch of other pirates. There's not much else for her to do.
Yeah.
To be fair, people do make rash decisions in a panic, and obviously that is a very panicky situation that she was in. I mean, who wouldn't try it? I mean, she didn't know that he wouldn't die, right? I mean, who's gonna believe it?
Okay, Lucas Green. He says, "I will say the final battle between Jack and Barbossa is the best face-off compared to the others." I respect your opinion, Lucas Green, but that water wheel fight in Dead Man's Chest, that is honestly one of my favorite face-offs in any movie ever. I can't get over how well written that scene is. It's a perfect encapsulation of like crazy, like it is like the height of freaking Gore Verbinski's like Rune Goldberg machine directing. But on top of that, you just got super fleshed out motivations from all three of those guys for why they need the chest. Oh, I love that scene so much. Oh my god, I could just eat it up. Yum, 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 yum.
I know, but we have 3 years.
Yeah, I know.
If this was like a whole series wide retrospective, we could. But
there's honestly nothing saying we can't do that, Jacob.
I mean, do you want to like? I mean, I haven't watched the other two movies in this point.
Well, I feel like at this point we'd probably want to just cover all 5.
I mean,
if we were to do a retrospective.
I mean, do you just want to do a retrospective on all of them, or do you like want to like?
You know what? Fuck it, Jacob. Fuck it. Yes. Yes, because I literally cannot wait to talk about Dead Man's Chest. I feel like I literally took half of the podcast here talking about Dead Man's Chest.
Yeah, that is true. Let's see. So does that mean we won't be doing one in 3 years then?
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait. I legitimately can't wait. This conversation has me so stoked to talk about Dead Man's Chest. Obviously, I'm chomping at the bits.
How about we compromise? We can like talk about some of our favorite bits now, but then like go full in next time.
Oh, there's a lot to get into with Dead Man's Chest. Yes,
trust me, I know, but I want to actually watch it before I just watch it again before I discuss it in depth.
Of course, yeah.
Before I discuss it in depth.
I mean, there's the Tia Dalma of it all. We haven't even touched Tia Dalma yet. Anyways.
It's like not to mention, like, speaking of the bloopers, I love the bloopers in these things.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think Dead Man's Chest is like my favorite blooper. It's like it's not even like one of the main characters. It's like where the guy like flubbed the line when like Elizabeth was hiding on the ship. It's like there's a female presence aboard, Captain. All the men have felt her. No, they haven't.
Lucas Green, honestly, I think it's close because I do think that the battle between Jack and Barbossa, it is certainly more personal. It's certainly more like raw, and like as far as like it being filmed, it's definitely got that old Hollywood flair to it. Like I said, I think the stuff with Governor Swan and the hand in the drawer adds a lot to the climax. I genuinely don't even really remember what Will and Elizabeth are doing besides the whole "you like pain, try wearing a corset" line.
They fought the other pirates on there, and then Elizabeth also like stuffed a bomb in one of the guys.
I remember that, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's not just the spectacle that I love about the climax of Dead Man's Chest. It is also just those character motivations are just so fleshed out. Anyways,
Davy Jones wanting to get his heart back. Cutler Beckett wanting control of the Caribbean. Jack Sparrow wanting to free himself.
Mm-hmm.
It's classic.
Okay, Lucas, awesome cast of characters, awesome music, simplistic plot, well shot, great finale. What's not to like? That's a good way to put it.
Basically, this movie saved pirate movies. Because remember,
it did what it could. Honestly, I think the thing that's kind of killing pirate movies again is the fact that they keep trying to make Peter Pan modern day happen.
Yeah, like the Pan movie that came out a couple of years ago.
And Peter Pan and Wendy.
I know, but I think it can be safely bet that the Pan movie that Pan is worse than Peter Pan and Wendy.
You know what? It might be, but I also think it is more interesting than Peter Pan and Wendy.
Well, I mean, there's a difference in being good and boring than being bad and interesting.
Exactly, and I think Pan is bad and interesting.
Yeah, it's one of those classic, like, so bad it's good movies.
I wouldn't even say it's so bad it's good. It's just weird. Like, you know, with obviously like the nirvana of it all. Like, what the hell? There and the fact that most of that movie is just like, you know, because when I think a Neverland setting, oh yeah, I think coal mines, Jacob. But anyways, I don't think the setting in Peter Pan and Wendy was much better. But I think we've pretty much the only thing we have to do is talk about this film's ending, which again is perfection.
Oh.
Like, I love the ending of Dead Man's Chest to death. Like I said, it is probably to this day the most electric moment I have ever had in a movie theater.
And of course,
this movie's ending is perfection.
This movie is, it's like, of course, Barbossa finally gets his wish. I feel.
Oh yeah. Oh, we should talk about that. Yeah. Oh my God.
It's like he didn't waste his shot, and then dropping the medallion. I feel cold.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I mean,
yeah, right.
I mean, it's basically he got exactly what he wished for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect.
I mean, they're like, it's kind of becoming kind of like a weird theme nowadays. Like, where there are like a lot of villains or whatever, or antagonists where they can't feel anything, and they're doing anything they can to feel something.
Well, I mean, in that respect, Barbossa was definitely like a trailblazer.
I mean, for sure. And it's most likely. I mean, Barbossa most likely wasn't the first. I mean, to be certain, but I just noticed it's like something that's been happening a lot in like recent, maybe in like a couple of games I played, where like trying to eliminate pain, but at that point you don't feel anything. But then there's also characters that don't feel anything and are desperate just to feel anything again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's actually very compelling. Like, if you live forever, but you lose all sensation, what's the point?
I hear you.
So it's like
Lucas Green, I will say that with your Davy Jones point, I think there's a lot more legitimacy to bringing back Davy Jones, since the dude is basically like the Grim Reaper of the ocean, than bringing back Palpatine. I mean, it's like, I think they could probably come up with a better explanation than somehow Davy Jones returned.
It's like, didn't Davy Jones like actually die?
I think he fell into the maelstrom.
And I thought his heart was replaced.
Yeah, but again, it's the dude was like the you know, if we can bring back Barbossa and not question it, we can bring back Davy Jones and not question it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know, but Calypso's apparently is busy with other stuff at the moment. I don't know. Calypso. But basically, the moral of the second two movie of the second third movie, Calypso's kind of an enigmatic bitch.
I'm not crazy about what they did with her in At World's End, but I freaking love her character in Dead Man's Chest.
I mean, I love her in Dead Man's Chest too. I'm just
like,
saying.
Her character in Dead Man's Chest is a huge part of why I love the world building in the series in general.
And I love that, and just, of course, her relationship with Davy Jones.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Davy Jones was like I said, all these movies are like something that probably shouldn't work.
You're right.
I mean, think about it. This is a movie based on a ride. A movie basically based on a theme park ride.
Mm-hmm.
Based on pirates, and it's at a time when pirates were not good at the box office or critically.
Mm-hmm.
And it launched like one of the biggest franchises in modern cinematic history.
Yeah, I really do wish that they would have kind of left well enough alone, or at the very least, if they did do sequels, I kind of wish what they would have done, instead of doing like the standalone movies like they did with 4 and 5, I kind of wish they would have just done a second trilogy. I feel like that would have been better. because as it stands now, this franchise is just kind of like in a weird spot of like, for all its faults, At World's End is iconic. Yeah. But like I think I literally barely remember a lot of chunks of the other two. The other two just don't stick in my head the same way. But I do think they probably had a better chance to if they were all part of a grander story. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, from what I understand, I think 5 was supposed to be more of a continuation of 4, but plans changed midway. That's like obviously another.
I mean, story. 5 honestly kind of consider it's kind of basically just like, let's play the hits.
I mean, and it kind of worked out in its favor, as you said. I do feel like it basically more than On Stranger Tides, even though I do still like have a soft spot for On Stranger Tides.
I have only seen On Stranger Tides the one time. It definitely needs a rewatch on my end, but yeah, I was not crazy about it. I think with On Stranger Tides, I was mostly just disappointed in Blackbeard. Yeah, I just really, again, it's probably just the fact that like Davy Jones and Barbossa are obviously tough acts to follow. But I think Javier Bardem did a much better job
as Salazar.
Yeah.
That is true, yeah. But I know he kind of got away from this, but the ending.
Yeah, we did get away from it. So going back to Norrington, I do love how this ending, again, I will, Jacob, I am just going to like unapologetically gush about Norrington and Dead Man's Chest.
I mean,
don't you worry.
I mean, go right ahead.
But I will say that I love how in this movie, the resolution of Norrington's character arc is like, oh, isn't that nice? He's giving him a head start. He's turned his ways, But then looking at it from the broader spectrum of the story of the series, it's like, no, this is the moment where Jonathan Norrington's life goes to shit. I love that, Jacob. I love the dichotomy of that.
Yeah, it says like, you can give him a day's head start.
It's like, it turns around what should have just been like a nice little like bow at the end of his character arc. It's literally like the catalyst for his entire downfall.
There was a bow on the character arc, but you pull open the bow and it becomes a Pandora's box.
I love that so much.
And he becomes like one of like a driving force in the sequels.
I wish he had more to do in At World's End. I don't think they gave him enough screen time in that movie. I think he should have been more at the forefront, but I digress.
His death was still sad, though.
His death was, yeah. Although I think Governor Swan's death is the saddest death just because it just happens out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's like, he didn't even realize it at first. Like, he didn't even realize it. Like, I suppose, I was like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I suppose I am here.
Okay, maybe the franchise should have ended after 3. I mean, yeah, it should have, but like I said, I do think there is merit to doing more of them. I just think they should have had more of a plan. Just because this franchise does have limitless potential when it comes to world building.
I mean, oh yeah. But,
okay,
Jack Davenport's like great as Norrington.
And then kind of just wrapping up all the arcs, like, you know what? One of my favorite jokes in this whole movie is that I don't really think people remember all that well.
What?
Will, nice hat.
after saying goodbye to Governor Swan and like, and Miss Swan, it could never work between us.
Oh man.
Will. Nice.
And again, I feel like that also kind of sets up some character arcs in the sequel. It's kind of crazy how this ending, like, it works so well as a standalone ending to the standalone movie. But man, did they put their work into having it flow naturally? You know what I mean?
Oh, exactly. I mean, like I said, I wish I had rewatched this movie. Actually, I mean, I just got done watching the first movie not too long ago, but I had wished I watched Dead Man's Chest more than like once or twice in my entire life.
Okay, well, to be fair, it is like I'm the one who kind of hijacked this podcast and made it into like half of a Dead Man's Chest podcast.
I know, but like I said, like the stuff I do remember being pretty damn great. Like obviously Davy Jones, like being like one of the best CGI characters of all time.
To this day, bar none, most CGI characters ain't got shit on him nowadays.
Thanos is good though.
I'd say Thanos is probably like the best equivalent to him.
You get like with the amount of like care and detail put into
it. Right, exactly.
But I mean, like people at the time like said like he was like second best only to like the 2005 King Kong. At the time 2005, that King Kong was very impressive.
I don't think that movie's aged particularly well, honestly. Coming as someone who was like a massive Peter Jackson stan.
As I said at the time. But
my problem with Dead Man's Chest is Barbossa not showing up till the end, but it's such a moment, though.
I mean, it wouldn't have been as impactful if he just showed up during the movie, like, hey.
I mean, that is kind of how he shows up at the end of the movie, but
I know, but it wouldn't have been nearly as impactful as if it was just like, in the middle, like, oh, like here's Barbossa. Hey.
Okay, Lucas Green, I absolutely don't disagree with you on the whole like dragging out the Indiana Jones and Fast and Furious and everything. I absolutely don't disagree.
I mean,
I'm just saying like
to be fair,
one more trilogy. I like Star Wars had 2 trilogies. I don't know.
So to be fair,
Star Wars only had 2 trilogies.
Yeah,
I don't hate the Disney Star Wars movies that much.
Yeah, I know. I didn't really comment on it. I'm just saying, like, Fast and Furious is Universal, not Disney, though.
Right. I think he's just talking Hollywood in general.
I know, but
you have to talk about the final scene in the movie, Jacob. And really bad eggs. Yep. Drink up me hotties, yo ho.
Like, bring me that horizon.
Just the really bad eggs thing. I don't know. Again, just the way Johnny Depp delivers that. It's so iconic. It's so good. It's so good. It's so perfect.
Like after everything is reaffirmed with Will, after Will saves his life, like after all, he is a blacksmith. No, he's a pirate. It's like that's like one of the first times watching a movie. I was actually anticipated the next line. You know what I mean? Like she's gonna say he's a pirate. It's like he's a pirate. I was like, ah.
Yeah, for sure.
Like even if you can like almost predict like what the call like a callback coming and stuff like that. That's like one of my earliest examples of being able.
Leonardo DiCaprio pointing.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's like she's gonna say he's a pirate. He's like he's a pirate. Ah.
I love how useful that meme is for so many different situations.
It is. I've only seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood once. I mean, that is from that movie, right?
Yes.
I've only seen that movie once, but dang, it's good.
I also love how Doug Walker is also now a pointing meme.
I'm not familiar with that one.
You're not familiar with the Doug Walker pointing meme, really?
not the Doug Walker one.
All right.
I know the Leo DiCaprio one, but not the.
Of course.
Not that guy with the glasses one.
So, guys, honestly, with this particular movie, I kind of don't feel like I did the conversation on it all that much justice, just because I'm just like kind of obsessed with Dead Man's Chest, obviously. I
mean, I remember when we did like a 2000s debate, you picked that as like the most underrated film of the 2000s.
You bet your ass.
But then basically then I had this going up against. I picked Teacher's Pet the movie, and I basically won the argument by saying your movie grossed more than $1 billion.
That's very fair. That is a very fair argument.
I mean, I will concede though, in terms of probably the overall franchise, it probably is underrated.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when people the reverence to this one, and then people's more mixed reactions to the later films. lot of people like tend to overlook Dead Man's Chest in that regard.
You know what? Honestly, I even had a little bit of a mixed reaction to Dead Man's Chest the first time I saw it.
I mean, like I said, to be fair, like maybe in terms of the overall franchise, I can probably see it because like a lot of people don't really talk about Dead Man's Chest. They talk about this one, like either at World's End or either like how it became like basically a parody of itself with like On Stranger Tides and Dead Men Tell No Tales.
I hate that title, by the way, Jacob.
Well, Salazar's Revenge is the alternate title, which is a better title.
That would have been a better title. I don't know. I just think Dead Men Tell No Tales. That's literally the title of a Pirates of the Caribbean Greatest Hits album.
I mean, it's the greatest hits movie.
This movie set up characters so dead. This movie is a masterpiece in its own right, but yes, you're not wrong.
I mean, I'm not gonna say I like. Like I said, I need to rewatch Dead Man's Chest, but even from what I remember, I probably can't say I would like this movie more than Dead Man's Chest.
Mm-hmm.
But I still really enjoy it.
Well, you know where I lean, but I still love this movie.
I mean, I obviously know where you lean. I mean,
you know what? In final thoughts, do you have any other final thoughts? Because I feel like I have a good kind of like closing statement to end out on.
Well, not really. I mean, like I basically said my piece about this movie. I mean, this is a movie that shouldn't work, but does. Like, it fires on all cylinders. Like, to quote Stefan Kocek, I really wish I was remembering his name. Like, this movie could almost be called accidentally genius because, like, it's a movie that, like, if you look at it, like, on paper, it shouldn't work. But, like, in practice, on viewing, it's just like, oh my god, they pulled it off. Those crazy bastards pulled it off. Like, it's a modern day grand adventure, pulp adventure movie. It's like a modern day equivalent to like Raiders or like it's something like, and to continue with the skeleton, like Jason and the Argonauts. Like, I mean, you know, with the skeletons and all. Like, it's the return of the grand adventure. It's a great swashbuckling movie. The music is epic. The characters are fantastic. Basically, this is a movie that like basically can never get old. But like, maybe don't watch it over and over again at once, but like just go back. It's always good for a revisit. That's what
I watched it over and over again as a kid. I actually had the VHS of it as well, believe it or not.
I have the DVD.
I had the DVD too, but I also had the VHS. I remember that. It was one of the last VHSs that came out.
I mean, yeah, that is true. But as I said, like, this movie's always good for a rewatch. Like, this is a movie that they can like watch something and still watch it multiple times and still get great enjoyment out of it.
And honestly, what you just said, I feel like that is the best argument for this movie above Dead Man's Chest. Is that I think Dead Man's Chest is still my favorite just because of how audacious and bold it is. Yeah. But this is absolutely the most rewatchable out of all of them, for sure.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, 2010s was definitely Avengers, for sure. 2020s, oh God, Mario. Maybe.
I mean, Mario was good.
It was good, yeah.
I mean, maybe in the new, maybe like if you count Spider-Verse, maybe
90s Jurassic Park, yeah. 90s was Jurassic Park.
Like, I mean, heck, if you want to like stretch it back to like the late 2010s, Spider-Verse. I mean, we need to wait for the trilogy to come out.
That's true. I could see that.
Yeah. I said obviously we need to wait for the final movie to come out to cast Final Judgment.
To be fair, the final movie's probably going to be out by 2026. Yeah. I mean, I know they're saying 2024, but I genuinely hope for the sake of the artist it doesn't come out in 2024.
Yeah, but that's a topic for another time.
But
unfortunately,
if it comes out in 2006, that's still, or 2026, like At World's End was 2007. So, you know, that'd still be like right in the timeline.
Wait, was it 2007 or 2006?
Dead Man's Death was 2006. At World's End was 2007.
All right. I got mixed up for a moment.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, what I'm hoping for is that we have not seen what the 2020s equivalent is. And I am hoping that the 2020s equivalent, I'm going to throw some Standing into the mix here. I brought up his name a couple times during Spielberg month. I hope the 2020s equivalent is some sort of franchise helmed by Jordan Peele. Because that dude has limitless potential as far as I can tell. Okay. Let's see. Richard's Victims 2020 is me. There's a very particular Recess clip where Spinelli has to, like, for some reason Spinelli's house is like being fumigated or something, so she has to like spend the night with someone else, and she's like, oh God, who am I spending the night with? And then Miss Finster just points to herself and she's like, me!
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 Weekend at Muriel's.
Yup. Probably my favorite Recess episode, honestly.
Me! No!
2020's Morbius.
Oh God.
Oh boy.
I swear the worst thing to come out of Morbius was the memes.
On it, like, realistically speaking, though, here's what I think is going to happen with the 2020s.
Yeah.
I think that we are living in an age where people are wising up to the IPs and the nostalgia bait and the endless franchises, and obviously this summer has not been great for the box office. Jacob, pending what goes down with the writer's strike and everything, how that works out, I'm really hoping that on the other side of the writer's strike and on the other side of this terrible box office summer, I'm really hoping that we see a rise in lower budget but more thoughtful and well-produced movies that are more original. And that is kind of my most optimistic outlook. But I don't know, man. Summer 2023, whatever Hollywood's doing, it ain't working no more. So, something's got to change. And I hope that change is an artistic renaissance of some kind.
Maybe.
All right. I know the worst thing to come out of Morbius is the movie.
I just got sick and tired of somebody. It's Morbin time.
It's Morbin time.
I got so sick and tired of seeing that. I was like, okay, this is actually worse than the movie itself. Like, so many people's like, oh, I love the part where I love them. Okay, we get it. You know what I mean?
Let's not be crazy originality. You know what, Richard's Victims? Excuse me for trying to be optimistic, all right? I'm just a little old boy with his head in clouds with this notion. Yes, I know, but everyone's been trying to be a nostalgia bait hit like No Way Home, but it hasn't been working out. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not originality. Richard's Victims, if anything else.
Originality. Like, let's face it, it's hard. Not everything is original. Like, basically, nothing is original nowadays.
Asteroid City is original.
The most important thing is creativity and good storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, originality isn't the most important thing. That's what a lot of people mistake. What's important is actually just being good.
I also think it is really important that the budgets on these movies go down for the sake of the industry, but also for the sake of creativity. I am a strong believer that a lower budget makes for a more creative end product. I am a strong believer in that.
All right. That is a good point.
I think that's a good note to end on. Okay, so guys, this has been awesome. Again, I apologize for making half of this podcast a dead man's chest conversation. Thanks for bearing with me in that regard. Shame we don't get live action Disney as good as this anymore. Freaking men, Lucas Green. Fingers crossed for Haunted Mansion. Fingers crossed, I guess. I don't think there's any way it's going to be as good as these movies, but, fingers crossed. I'm hoping for the best.
And I don't know if and this might seem a bit weird coming from me, but I'm going to wait to see if it's better than the Eddie Murphy one.
Yeah. And I don't even hate the Eddie Murphy one at all. But...
I mean, I don't either. I have a soft spot for it. I mean, I know it's not great.
I wouldn't say I have a soft spot for it, but I acknowledge that it has its moments.
Like I said, but that's what I'm saying. I'm not gonna. There's, we all have like guilty pleasure movies, like where they're not like objectively great, but you still love them regardless.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I wouldn't say I love Haunted Mansion 2003. Did that come out in 2003 or?
Yes, it came out in November of 2003, and this came out in July of 2003.
Man, like 2003 was like their year for ride movies.
It really was, man. They were trying to make it a thing.
like when did Country Bears come out?
2001, I believe.
Yeah, so I was like, and I know Terror came out in 97, so.
Uh-huh.
But either way, it's like, I wouldn't
Did
say.
You know that they closed the Country Bears at Disneyland before the movie came out?
Huh. Well,
And it was literally like literal months before I went to Disneyland. I'm still bitter about that to this day.
But my point is, it's like, I don't know. Maybe it will be a better movie, but it doesn't mean I'll enjoy the Haunted Mansion more than the new one. Or
For sure.
Like, maybe it'll be a better movie, but that doesn't mean I'd objectively enjoy it more.
It could also be terrible. I mean, realistically, it could also be terrible.
I mean, I know. I'm just saying. I'm just saying objectively.
Sure.
I'm just
going to shout out everyone in the comments. This has been one of the best comment sections we've had in a while, guys. Y'all are killing it here. I appreciate it so much. Lucas Green, Kogias Anime Fan, Richard's Victim, Slasher Fred, brief cameo from Theme Park Priest. I believe, is that everyone, Jacob? I believe that's everyone.
Kogias, Lucas Green. We have a Theme Park Priest briefly. Let's see.
Yeah.
It's Slasher Fred. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And,
all right, well, thank you guys. We weren't really planning on it, but Jacob, I guess we're committed to doing a 5-part retrospective now.
We could just do like, I mean, if you wanted we could do those eventually, and maybe we don't have to wait until the next ones come out. But
well, I'm saying like I would like to we don't have to get them all done in the month of July or anything, but I do think we should make a point to do all 5.
Yeah, I mean, because I know how much you desperately want to talk about Dead Man's Chest more in depth.
Yeah, and honestly, on Stranger Tides, like I said, it deserves a rewatch on my end. I've only seen it the one time, so
I said, and maybe I'm overblowing it to when I said I liked it earlier.
Right. All right, so yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. You are awesome.
And really bad eggs.
Drink up, me hotties, yo-ho. Yes, Richard's Victims, we are going to do a spoiler cast on Barbieheimer. Good night, everybody.